So I went upstairs and I tested the live stream to see if it was going to work. It didn't have video captured for some reason, so I'm going to have to work on that. And the audio was a little odd compared to the other camera, but we'll see what I can do. Let's talk about your responses. So we always start over there, as we start in the middle. Today we'll start over here. So what did you guys get to come up and what did you come up with for what is justice? Find the pen, the notepad. Take down your planned rantings. There's only 2 of you in this group. All right, which group are you guys again? D. And you're missing which of those? Okay, all right. So what did you come up with for what is justice?
Okay, then justice is used as a balance in the marketing sphere. It's also the fairness in production of right and punishment of wrong action.
Okay, so you said justice is balance?
Yes.
In marketing, what do you mean by balance?
Justice is used as a regulation in marketing.
Okay, so it's a regulation in the market, so it has something to do with the law?
Yeah.
Okay, so the law is important, all right. And then it's fairness.
Fairness.
What is fairness?
Like let's say it's not fair for you to have, let's say, a lot of money and then not spend it in helping others, like donating. I don't think it's fair.
Okay, so if I hoard money and I don't give back, you think that's unfair?
Yes.
If I just keep all the money, what are you, communist?
Yeah.
Let's. So when you say fairness and justice, fairness is equally as abstract as justice is, isn't it? I mean, that's what we tend to default to, in many instances, synonyms for justice that are equally as amorphous as the concept of justice itself. So fairness, what's fair? Equality of results, is that fair? If I give everybody the same result?
It might be, it's subjective too. It might be fair too.
Why are you shaking your head now? Over there.
Like, you said, is it fair to give everybody the same results?
Yeah.
Do something like.
So like in a dealership, like I believe like you want to give everybody the same outcome and let, like your example for the Cadillac, how they want to come back, like that's fairness. They're going to tell their friends, all that kind of stuff. But that's like from like a marketing perspective. Like everybody's not going to receive the same results. That's like why our government is the way it is. But from that perspective, I believe that you should. Like if you give everybody the same results when they're looking to buy a product, they're gonna. I hope they're good results at least.
Okay. Every contract for a sale of goods under the Uniform Commercial Code is a requirement that it be done through a course of fair trade and good dealing. That's sort of the standard language that you have to have. It's fair trade and good dealing. I don't know. If one side gets more than the other, is that not fair trade? Well, is it possible to have actual equality in every transaction? Or is someone always going to get a slight advantage? I don't know. All right, so what were your examples?
Our example was that Apple sued Samsung for copying its patents. Ohio State is filed action against OU because the block O didn't. They thought it was their trademark, but it's theirs. And how cigarettes are so addicting that people are just taking them in, and if you take out the nicotine, it would just be a regular cigarette. Not a lot of people would be such a big thing consuming that will harm themselves.
Okay, so with regard to Apple versus Samsung, who should win, Apple or Samsung? By the way, they've sued each other back and forth. Yeah, they for patent infringements. Go ahead.
I think in that situation, technically iPhone or Apple should win because Samsung did have a very the schematic did look very similar, but iPhone was the first one to bring it to market and they were the ones to perfect the model and patent it.
Okay,
So
all right. So you think Apple should have won that?
yeah,
But Samsung did other stuff that they said Apple infringed on.
LCD batteries, but nothing. Everything that was changing.
That. One of the things I hate this device because it's like a year and a half old and the battery goes dead. I have to plug it into the computer because to get through 2 classes, battery life is, I think that's pretty critical in my opinion. In an age in which you can't easily. When I got my first cell phones, well, the first one was a bag phone. You couldn't change out, you didn't have extra batteries. But I remember the first really sort of convenient cell phone I had was what was called the brick, or that's what we called it. Was the brick? It was this gray brick thing. And the great thing about that was you could slide batteries on and off of it. So if the battery started to go dead, you just slid on another battery. And that was a very popular feature on a lot of models until Apple came out with their, it's completely enclosed. It's very difficult to take it apart. You can't change the battery out very easily on this device. Now, they claim it's for a variety of reasons that makes it better.
It was proven that they throttle batteries, so that's their tactic for super cycles.
So, is that? I think batteries. I think that's a big deal. They're infringing on battery patents. So, okay, all right. So, with regard to Ohio State versus OU, what did you all say? How's that example of ethics?
I was saying that Ohio State was basically mostly known for its block O, and then OU took that, but why now are they taking action against them? Why didn't they do that action back when they first started having the block O?
Okay, so that's an interesting theory. At law, we call that the Doctrine of Laches. The idea that you shouldn't be able to just rest on something and then all of a sudden go after somebody. If you wait too long to sue somebody, if you hit me in a car accident and I sue you 15 years later, or even 2 years later for damaging my car and hurting my neck, that's not fair. You shouldn't rest on that. You should take prompt action to resolve the case, right? So I think that's an interesting argument. Is there a temporal aspect to justice? We certainly think so in criminal law, don't we? Generally speaking, with every crime except murder, there's what we call a statute of limitations, which means that after a certain point, if you committed the crime, if you committed the bank robbery, and you hid the money and you get away with it, and they don't charge you, I think it's 20 years in most states for bank robbery, and they don't charge you with it, well, they run out of time and they can't charge you. That's it. It's over. And so the idea behind that is that people have to be able to move on with their lives. And I think, does that apply to a school though? I mean, in the same sense that it applies to an individual?
I really don't think so. I mean, it took a long time to debate that they should take action. And it's not right for them to just take action like at this time. They should have taken action when they first started using that letter.
They should have been Johnny on the spot about filing their
I
trademark
don't think that it's a good idea to take action at all. It's gonna go.
because you waited too long.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your third example of the cigarettes?
Basically, if there was not a lot of nicotine in that product, or not nicotine at all, I don't think that people will harm themselves as much as they do now that it has a lot of nicotine.
Okay. So is it
Like
is it ethical to sell them?
That's the thing. I don't think it is. With nicotine, not that much, because it also has other types of chemicals that would be harmful for you.
The World Health Organization, the WHO, has come out and said there is no safe amount of alcohol. For years, people were getting tanked up on red wine because they said there are some health benefits to drinking, you shouldn't drink more than a glass a day. But there were health benefits. Apparently, it was heart healthy to have a glass of wine. The WHO has now come out and said there is no safe amount of alcohol, that it does damage to your body, even in small amounts. There are more deaths caused by alcohol, probably worldwide now, than by smoking. Why?
It's so easily accessible
Okay?
because alcohol like screws your whole mind and motor functions.
And smoking's decreasing while alcohol consumption is on the rise. So should we stop marketing alcohol?
It's also people's choice. People choose to drink.
Well, what about cigarettes?
People are being informed about how harmful they are.
Alcohol's harmful,
I mean, so,
so we should do away with alcohol and cigarettes.
It's going to be heavy, but in the other part, it's also something.
What about marijuana? We just legalized that. We have the most liberal medical marijuana law in the nation.
It's gonna cut back on like the alcohol usage and stuff.
Okay?
Certain age groups, but not all.
like, there's gonna be more alcohol in beer.
Yeah. There's actually, it doesn't change it that much because, as I understand it, in Oklahoma, 3.2 was alcohol by volume, not alcohol by weight. So when you go to 6 point, that's alcohol by weight. It doesn't actually change the actual alcohol content all that much. But there's no safe amount. Is there a safe amount of marijuana? We don't know. Do we? We do know?
There's testing. I mean, there's been testing throughout the years.
I mean, yeah, people take like doses of it, like, but like,
You can, I mean,
like,
you
that's
can
like,
like put two people together, a person is drinking and the person is smoking marijuana, and have them go to the free, like one drink for a joint, that person is smoking a joint can be able to function that is one other person.
Really?
Guarantee, I guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
I would do it.
Colorado has seen an increase in DUI as a result of illegal.
But that's just because they just don't know how to handle it, but most people function wise, most people know how to function while I being driving, I mean, it's not difficult.
Some people can function on Oxycontin.
Exactly.
I don't think we should pass it out like candied mints.
I think we should like. There's marijuana.
Okay. Yes, sir. What? To see what's, like, I know. That might get me fired. However, I do have a colleague at OSU who teaches in the hospitality and tourism management, and they did do experiments when she's recently at OSU, but before she was at Virginia Tech, and they actually did do experiments with students on alcohol. Now, they had to take their keys away from them, and they had to keep them on campus, but they, in the hospitality program, to demonstrate, the ability to assess whether or not somebody was becoming inebriated in the hospitality program. They actually did do this sort of field experiment. I don't know how they got it through the IRB process, the institutional review board, but they did. And, apparently you can have alcohol in Virginia Tech. You can have it at OSU as well in their hospitality program. When I was getting my PhD at New Mexico State, we had a hospitality program. They taught the wine tasting class right across from my marketing class every day. And my students all wanted to go over to that class because it seemed like they were having more fun than we were having in my class. I'm fairly entertaining, I think, but that was even more entertaining, apparently. So should we outlaw, if we're going to outlaw cigarettes, should we outlaw alcohol?
Just take small steps.
Let's take small steps first. What about fast food? More people die of heart attacks every year from fast food than they do from cigarettes and alcohol, probably. There is an interesting phenomenon that we are experiencing for the first time in human history in the United States. We have more obese people than this has never happened before. We have more obese people in the United States than starving people. It's not that starvation is not an issue in the United States. It is. But we now have greater numbers of people who have obesity issues than we have starving issues. For the first time in human history, we are seeing children as young as 10 suffering from cardiac arrest. Should we outlaw McDonald's?
No.
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 So we should just outlaw the value meal because that encourages them to eat more lower
We
prices.
should encourage people to make healthy choices, not just go get whatever. Like instead of just showing that harmful effects, we can also just show also other choices.
Okay, that's called nudging, and that's actually very ethically suspect. And how do we nudge people? And they argue that we should, marketers nudge people all the time. We do it through environmental cues that we want people to engage in. And so you engage in this behavior where you nudge them. And I'll give you an example of one of the ones that I wrote a paper on. I had a professor in my marketing program who his whole stream of research was consumer choices and food products. He did all of these experiments with a guy up at Cornell. And by the way, they've now had a lot of their papers pulled because it turns out that they didn't do them completely ethically. But in theory, the ideas behind them were pretty sound. One of the experiments that they did was they went into buffets and they found out that if you took away the trays from people in these buffets, his major professor was a guy named Brian Wansink, and I'm almost out of time, so I'll try to get this out. Brian Wansink does all of this stuff in the Food and Brand Lab at Cornell University. And so they figured out that if they took away the trays out of cafeterias, people ate less. Because if you could load that tray up, you know, you go through the buffet one time, you got a tray. Well, if you just give them a plate, how many plates can you carry?
2.
You can carry 2, although most people only carry 1 because they do what? They get their drink and then they get their food. And so they only, you know, they'll get their food and then they'll get a drink. You give them a tray and all of a sudden the caloric intake increases dramatically because now they can get what? They can get 2 or 3 plates on there along with their big gulp of sweet tea or whatever, and they eat more. So if you take the tray away, people eat less at a buffet. That's called nudging, right? We nudge them into the behavior that we want them to engage in. Because what happens is when people take their plate of food, they don't want it to get cold, so they sit down. If you'll leave those on the table, I'll bring them back every single time. So that way I can kind of also keep track and roll as well. If they sit down and they eat the food, they're less likely on the next trip to take as much. But on the first trip, they're likely to take a lot more. And isn't that great? Isn't that healthy? We're encouraging healthy behavior, less eating, less caloric intake. Well, you're influencing people in a way that they don't even know. And it's manipulating them, and you're not allowing them the opportunity to have free will. And so it's highly ethically suspect. But a lot of people say, well, that's what we should do. We should nudge people. Well, you can nudge people to make bad choices as well, doing the same thing. Right? If you want to sell a whole lot of product, you know, put it at eye level in the grocery store. I'm out of time, so we will continue with this next time. If you'll leave the nameplates, I'll gather them up.